Okay, folks in audio land, you know the deal. We'll be there momentarily. Nice day shaping up in the Willamette Valley, looking out of Eagle's Nest too. All right, folks, let's do this. All right then. Welcome back to the Foxhole. AfterShoX Season 2, Episode 26, number 58 overall. Your faithful host, Ken Harlan, coming to you from Eagle's Nest 2, Studio B, on a wonderful Wednesday afternoon. How you all doing? We're ice cold chilling as always, doing those things that we do. As always, you know how we do things up in here. Like and subscribe to FTIN FX Media's YouTube channel. Hit a like, hit a subscribe, on a sponsor, follow FTINFX@gmail.com. Call the hotline 541-525-0896. We'd love to hear from you. Leave a message. Thank the people who've joined the channel in recent weeks. Appreciate that. Tell your friends. Things are about to really pop. All right. Let's get rolling with this. Yeah, there's a lot of wild stuff going on. Some good, some not so good. Some doors apparently have closed, others are opening. All we can do here in the foxhole is march on and keep providing the high fidelity experiences. And let me tell you, we got some stuff on the horizon here. Just stick with us as promised. Some things that were promised probably aren't going to happen. We'll see what happens. Maybe some people will come to their senses. Maybe they won't. Both sides of that coin. But we don't need to get into that. So, episode 58 coming to you right now. Where do we start? Well, we're going to call this segment All That Glitters Isn't Necessarily Always Gold. And all the stuff this week with Mark Walter. Yeah, that Mark Walter. At one point, hailed as the savior, bringing championships to the Dodgers. Buying the Lakers for a record $10 billion. Now, it seems like this big house of what we thought was granted is truly a house of cards. I want to thank friend of the show, Eric H. Sent me some really good articles that I could read briefly before doing this to get some more info on all the shenanigans at play here. And there's a lot. When you start talking Madoff kind of stuff, as Eric H. kind of pointed out, it's really sleazy. And I don't know how this is all going to play out. And of course, this cuts directly to me because obviously I'm a Dodgers fan, and you all know I'm a Lakers fan. Two of the most high visible brands in global sports, let alone North America. And there was just endless ramifications that are going on with this. But let's start with the whole Mark Walter thing. I said last week that, yeah, I think the powers that be, they convened a huddle and said, yeah, you've got to step away from this. But it turns out he needs cash because, like I said, this house of cards, this is way more complicated, way more over my head kind of stuff because I talk sports. I'll get into the whole financial crime kind of thing only when I can assign some commentary to it. And this is just crazy. And then you have the Bus family. And this is another part of it. We had Alec Ford on the show last week. Great commentary. Good grief. Episode went like 3 hours. It was so much fun. But he added an interesting spin. When I first heard that they were selling, and that's Mark Walter, selling to Kushner and Bob Iger, Alec sent me a note basically saying, the old man, Jerry Buss, is spinning in his grave. And we find out later on, Jeannie is trying to block the cell because part of the cell and her being governess and all this other nonsense. But at best, it's 5 of the 6 Buss kids went along with it. Long story short is, she pulled the plug and sold it from them to Mark Walter. And this is just, the Buss family cookout ain't a fun place to be. Moving forward would be my guess as far as that is concerned. And this is crazy. A lot of folks are kind of sad if this is the end of the Buss family. But I tell them, hey, if Peter O'Malley could sell the Dodgers many, many years ago, I'm sure Walter spun in his grave once or twice and went back to sleep. And that's the way things are probably going to be with Jerry Buss as far as lying in his grave. May he rest in peace. Okay, but I won't say that to about Walter O'Malley. That might make some people angry. Still, many, many, many moons later. But yeah, this is crazy because obviously Laker Nation, which I've been a part of a long time ago, has high expectations. And this may turn out well for them, but you have to wonder, with all the turmoil, what kind of impact that's going to have on the court. Same thing with the Dodgers, right? I mean, it's no coincidence that the Dodgers all of a sudden have been, I don't know, playing like crap. It would be the best way to say that. Yeah, they can get fat on the Royals and Rockies, but can't beat anybody that's good right now. And it's 1-1. It ain't making 2. And then there was the impact on global soccer because him and Todd Bowley, also a partner of the Dodgers. Chelsea, their stake in Chelsea's up for sale. And there's questions about that. And there's questions about Bowley and Walter influencing Gianni as far as this whole thing of making the World Cup a cash grab with FIFA. I mean, the whole thing, when you peel it away, it's a stinky diaper. And, 2026, it's already been confusing. And in the 2020s, it's definitely been confusing. And a CF to end all CFs as far as decades are concerned. This is truly another twist. Especially in what I call probably now the global sports capital. I know New York's still going to try to flex, but I think LA has pretty much become the universal hub for many, many things. Obviously, entertainment and sports. I don't know how this is going to look moving forward. I mean, everything will survive. Everything will flourish. The people that matter will get paid. But we as fans, are we going to care as much? And is it just going to become this faceless thing where it's a toy as opposed to when Jerry Buss owned it, as far as the Lakers are concerned, and the O'Malley family when they owned the Dodgers? It was a sight. It was a source of pride. Brought the community together. And I don't know if those sort of things, pride and community, matter in these big transactions, the way things are going. And, you throw in that whole thing down there in Inglewood, it's a mess. So what have we got here at the end? I think what we have here is a troubling future if success has a dark undercurrent to it like this. Right? Where we're more wondering who's going to end up in federal court, how many lawyers are going to get paid, as opposed to caring what actually happens on the diamond or on the basketball court. We've been talking about this now for the last 6 years, so this is no shock and this is no surprise. I think it's just more sad that it's harder and harder to blur the two as we've done for many, many years, where, yeah, this is going to be more the conversation. There's going to be more scrutiny. And I do think folks are going to get jaded. I mean, gosh, imagine a kid right now who's a Dodger fan. It's like, Dad, what's going on with the Dodgers, man? And how do you explain that to them? I don't know. I don't know. I think it's just really interesting where we find ourselves right now and what is going to happen next. I mean, are they going to throw this guy in the clink? And because Kushner's involved and a lot of folks, I mean, I even heard Flea talking about it. It's like going, don't turn my Lakers into another Orange Man nightmare, which I think is a little bit ridiculous. But those are fair questions. You know, if your politics does get into your sports, and it's crazy that Mark Walter was on the lawn of the White House a couple of weeks ago. Pretty much the scene of success. And what we thought was a house of granite, it's a house of cards, and it's about to be blown over. Crazy how this world works that way. It's been a crazy year of this kind of stuff, right? One point this year, we thought we were giving props to Diana Rossini for being a great analyst and an insider. And now she, within a matter of a few snaps, once the S storm starts swirling, now she's a pariah. Mark Walter, pariah. Kawhi Leonard, possibly a pariah. Okay, folks. That's segment one. When we come back, we will cook something else up. All right. You know, we're always ice cold chilling. We're always going to say, like and subscribe to FTINFX Media's YouTube channel. Give the video a like. Tell your friends. You want to be on the podcast? Let me know. Definitely got some guest in the hopper. I'm working on some cool things. Always be patient. We do make things happen here. Sometimes it takes a lot longer than it needs to. But hey, when you're a army of one, sometimes that's the way it plays. Okay, so what are we going to do? We're going to call this segment Windows into the World. What am I talking about? Okay, it's basically been a month since the World Cup concluded. And we've all been talking about MLS, kind of knocking them off the left field wall at Fenway, the Green Monster. Over there, thanks world, we've got it from here. Watched a very compelling podcast. I'm actually a couple. Like MLS Moves, forget the other one. But they've kind of looked into this transfer window for MLS. There have been some interesting names that have come across the board, obviously. You know, Lewa, Robert Lewandowski, going to Chicago, obviously comes to mind. Anton Griezmann going to Orlando City. And those are big signings considering all the things that have gone on this summer. But for critics of the MLS, it's not quite enough. I was watching this podcast, and all this belly aching about not taking advantage of this window and maximizing. And a lot of it comes to Mo Salah, for example, that Sporting Kansas City and their owner, who we'll be talking about here in the weeks to come, and his ideas of ownership, and we've already brought him up in the past, he struck out with Mo Salah and ended up signing Brazilian Andre Luiz. And everybody's cranky because most of the law ends up in Turkey. And some other big names don't come over. And people are upset because MLS was not more aggressive about it. And I get that point. But the thing is, other people have big bags of cash. I mean, crap. Didn't I talk about last week? The club over in Greece, basketball, wants to offer Joker a big bag of cash to come over. This is the way it goes. And I know we all like to beat up on MLS. And there's a good reason for that. And there's a reason why, even with the World Cup, you're not getting the big splash of people coming over. It's the same as always. And until MLS is able to fix their salary cap structure, which apparently is in the works and is about to happen, it's hard to say. I mean, I can look at my own team, LAFC. We've got Sonny and Denny Bawanga up front. But you've got Dollar Tree midfielders. And you just see this far too often in the MLS. And I think, once you fix that and can have more powerful rosters and attract talent and maybe retain it and not always have to play the selling game. I mean, the selling game is a big part of it, but that's not your primary focus. You leave that to the smaller fish in the pond. Am I being unreasonable with this? I don't think so. I mean, the answer isn't simple other than, let the money start flowing and let's see what happens. I mean, I love that Chicago getting Lewandowski and some of the other moves they've made. They look like they can finally be viable, and the league needs that market. They need every market to be thriving. And this challenge, which I'll get into in a minute from the USL, this is no joke. This is real. And you cannot keep putting, how do I put this? You can't keep rolling the same nonsense out there. You got to fix the TV deal. And I like Apple, and I think taking away the paywall helps. But as I've said in the past, you got to figure out a way to let local markets show the games so the casuals can stay involved in case they don't have Apple or don't want to get Apple. I mean, that's just doing a disservice across the board. I think everybody can agree with that. All right. The global chase begins this week. We already got a taste of it. I watched my PSG lose a trophy when they were a man up for, 40 or 50 minutes. So this idea that they won't be challenged this year, Lens, who finished second in League On, they ready. This is not going to be a cakewalk for the Red and Blues. What do we see? Like Arsenal beat the crap out of City with a shield. Obviously, what's the competition that La Liga has? Well, not La Liga, but Barcelona, like the Gomper, and Real Madrid has something similar. So, all the transfers are now starting to solidify. I mean, all the teams have really bulked up, at least over in Europe. You're not complaining over there like we are here about not enough being done. But I'm really excited. I mean, there's just this time of year, so much exciting stuff gets spawned. And the return of global soccer is, I just saw the joy in people's faces. I was at some gathering, which I'll get into in a minute, not specifics, but just more of being around the local soccer community. And they were telling me about some big watch party for EPL this weekend, and it's great. I love seeing these soccer communities get together. And I think that is going to be fun after the World Cup, in spite of MLS not really maximizing having the World Cup on our soil. But if MLS was doing something right, I'd have been having a different conversation over the past 6 years. We'll see what my man Larry Berg has to say about all that in the long run. Okay, yeah, exciting stuff. Looking forward to getting up at 4:30 in the morning and watching football proper from set up till basically late in the night with MLS. It's a wonderful time of the year when both of these leagues are going at the same time in this soon to be discarded window for the MLS, along with the other football universe. Okay, so I've been talking a lot about Sporting Cascades FC. And as of late, we've been sitting back, kind of doing our thing, kind of waiting, because this thing was put on hold. Don't need to really get into that too much. I mean, there'll be time for that as we go through the year, because we do plan on doing a lot of content that'll be related to this soon to be USL 1 club in Eugene. And it is interesting for me personally. Okay, I'm an LAFC fan, as I mentioned earlier, and you know this. And the reason why I am an LAFC fan is because I got a chance to be on something on the ground floor. But I do that virtually. Because I live up here in Oregon, and since podcasting ain't making me rich, I don't get to go to Los Angeles every 5 minutes. And so I've been able to do this kind of virtually, especially back before Elon scared everybody away from X. We have a wonderful community over there. But there's nothing like actually being a part of it and watching it go from kind of a seed. Because we were a USL2 club, and so there's a lot of us who are already, we're part of the cult. And now we're going from a cult to actually being a real thing with marches to the stadium, hardcore away days and things like that. And kind of watching that structure be built, kind of cool to meet the people involved and seeing how they're dealing with getting a soccer team, a real professional team online. It's cool. We're going to get insights from people involved, people who are going to help make this club one of the more special things to ever happen in Eugene, let alone the USL period. Stay tuned, folks. It's going to be a lot of fun. I just had to get that in there because I said I've gone to some gatherings lately and seeing the energy and the excitement in people's eyes and watching them be a part of the process. These are all wonderful things. So stay tuned. Like I said, we're going to do some really cool things when it comes to this USL team coming to Eugene early next year. And the stuff leading up to the launch, I'll have the magnifying glass out, have our people back on. So, yeah. All right, folks. The long march begins. It's going to be a heck of a day when we take our first march to Civic Stadium. Okay, when we come back, we'll talk a little gridiron. See you momentarily. All right. Welcome back to the Foxhole. Your faithful host, Ken Harlan. Ice cold chillin' like Kavicha Kvaratskhelia, even though he wasn't ice cold chillin' when they lost the Trophy of Champions. Nobody was. Okay. What are we going to call this segment? I think we're going to call this segment Seasons Change, but the fever stays ferocious with each passing year. What am I talking about? Well, not football proper, but football universe. And we got a big, healthy slice of that with the first slate of preseason games. Yeah, the behemoth is back, y'all. It's funny for me because I was on a mission, which hopefully I can hammer out a mini scene episode that's still in the works. So I didn't get a chance really to like do a deep dive. I got to watch the Commanders game yesterday after I had time to like decompress from my very long weekend being wild in the field. And obviously yesterday, which I call my content day, as far as getting the reactions to the weekend, I thought it was interesting because, like I said, it's so funny when it comes to football fans and the preseason or slate of exhibition games, as the cynical ones like to say. But I just always feel when it comes to the preseason, like the song says, you just gotta poke around. Just gotta poke around. And it's the truth. Yeah, there is something to say about, well, there's no, I can't really care about something when they don't care about winning, which I always think is crazy. And of course, with all the prop bets and all the other nonsense, you can find a way to make it easy. Now, I'm not saying you shouldn't be out soaking up the rest of your summer and getting in your yayas before you are locked into football madness. I totally understand that 9,000% as far as that goes. But yeah, I just feel like some of the hate around the preseason games, and I think there's interesting the conversation going on today is what there was a big dust up at the Cowboys and Saints. They had a joint practice. They do joint practices, before a preseason game. Kind of the only time you can get contact in. So yeah, there's a lot of pent up aggression that needs to get out before you really start hitting for real. So it shouldn't be a surprise to see these kind of displays of aggression when you put pit bulls into a ring. Yeah, people just need stuff to overreact to. But once again, just another intriguing plot line. The thing I am also interested, though, is Captain Roger Goodell. He came out and said something very interesting this week. What did Roger say, Ken? He's talking about a true global vision where it's not even speculative anymore. It's going to happen. What did he say? We're going to have a team based out of the U.S. That's hence why what do we have? 8, 9 global games now, 9, 10. So it would make sense, and I've been saying this for a long time. This is where it's going with everything. But that is interesting to see Roger basically say, yeah, it's going to happen. Which, heck, they haven't even been talking about expansion for a while. Like, no, but the next time we do, it's probably going to be a team outside of the lower 48. And I'm really chomping at the bit to see what that actually looks like. Now, where's it going to be? London? Mexico? I mean, because if you do it in Canada, that don't count. They got all right. But a team in London, Paris, Munich, Barcelona or Madrid, they got the stadiums for it. The way travel works out, with the buys and the 18-game season coming. And it's funny because I do feel that if this had been proposed at the beginning of this decade, you would have heard screaming and yelling. 6 years later, with the inundation of all these international games, it's just like, okay. And hell, fans are pretty psyched because now they have an excuse to go abroad, see their team, get some sightseeing in. Although I would say, just go sightseeing, don't tie it to the game, because if the game sucks and you lose, you're going to get cranky and be bitter for that whole week. Just saying. Okay. Mentioning it being the first week of preseason, and there's a lot of raving reviews out there. People liked how Ty Simpson looked. People liked how Fernando Mendoza looked. Shador, not so much. Okay. Deshaun, I'm really curious about the observations on Cam Ward. Obviously Cam Ward, a well-traveled man in his college days, from Incarnate Ward to Wazoo to the U. A lot of folks think he's regressing. And this is that interesting dilemma, right? Because this is the moment to evaluate. Because there's no patience anymore. We don't let people sit around forever. Well, maybe J.J. McCarthy might prove me wrong. But in general, we take a quick look. It's either happening or it's not. And I wonder with him, it's already a make or break year. Not that he'll be out of the league, but heck, you look at someone like Anthony Richardson, who didn't look so well in his time on the field. It doesn't take much for your confidence to be shook. It doesn't take much for you to be broken. And I see him, and I'm kind of concerned for him. Because the NFL can be very cruel. But I do have some optimism, in spite of what the Jason Whitlock's say, when I see what the kid down in Charlotte, what's his name, Bryce Young. I think he, by size-wise, that's Whitlock's complaint that you can't win with a midget quarterback. They showed something last year. And so I do feel that there is got to still be some patience. There has to be a patience component, especially of the initial runs when there's been a lot of upheaval in that organization. There's been some questionable decisions. And so it's not that I think he's a bust, but I do worry about a team that may struggle again, what that's going to do to his psyche. Okay. Whew. I've had some time. I brought this up last week in Fox, starting in the Foxhole, the XL edition. Thank Alec Ford once again for coming on and joining us. It was fantastic. But we brought up Mr. Daniels. And there's a lot of conversation. All the goodwill. Well, not all the goodwill. There are some people, especially the Washington media, they really have his back. And I give him credit for that. A lot of folks coming at his mama because she is kind of a helicopter parent. Oh, nobody getting close to my boy. I'm handling all of his affairs. And I don't know if that criticism is fair or unfair. But I do know is this, what we were talking about last week, and I've had time to marinate and digest it and just think this is so silly. And so what's wrong with this world in terms of people being way too self-absorbed, way too narcissistic? We've all got these things in us. So I'm not sitting here, having some Olympian judgment, but I do think it's out of control when you're a mercenary and you want a Heisman. Bully for you. But the one thing that we do value the most, or maybe we do, maybe we don't, is you winning the Natty. That's something Joey Cool did, Mr. Burrow. You didn't. You were at Arizona State. You come over here, put up some great numbers, and then all of a sudden, you're going to get into your feelings. You should be wanting someone to wear that number, kind of like what USC does with 55, going all the way back to Jack Del Rio. I know folks think it's Willie McGinnis, but it's really Jack Del Rio where that started. And you, Junior, and on and on. You're Claiborne, you're a baller, you get 55. You should want that, Mr. Daniels, asking for your Heisman back. Now, you don't want them to use your name, image, and likeness. This is the kind of BS we've spawned, okay? I can only say so much about that. But the idea of getting crazy for a number and given the peanut galleries fodder for years. Now, maybe this makes him a little bit tougher around the edges. And at least in my case, hopefully he comes with a chip on his shoulder and is ready to light the NFL up. But unfortunately, I wonder, though, if you're soft about this, what else are you going to be soft about when the going gets rough? And it's going to get rough. And it did last year. And if you mentally are coming apart over somebody else wearing your jersey, you see the Commanders' schedule, they could easily come out of the gate 0-5 or 1-5. I mean, they got to see what do they have? The Eagles, followed by the Cowboys, the Seahawks. I think the Rams. It's crazy, and you're worried about this kind of nonsense. I mean, this is where both things can be true because yeah, I do feel people overreacted to a lot of this stuff, but at the same time, it's kind of a reality check that there are bigger things to attain for this kid. Now, like I said, I do like that the Washington media, right there, they're looking at it as this is kind of an overreaction. Get off social media, it'll be fine. But who gets off social media anymore? So, time will tell. Okay, folks, we're kicking and scratching, getting through this pretty fast. This is going to be warm. What are we looking at here today? It's going to be like 88 or 89, with the lights on. So that's kind of why I'm churning through this. Definitely will have Fox trading in a foxhole. I'm thinking sometime it'll be out Friday. Sometime in the afternoons. I'll probably do it early. Anyways, when we come back, we will get you out of here with some parting shots and probable salty takes. See you in a snap and a twist. All right. Welcome back to the Foxhole. Your faithful host, Ken Harlan here. Yeah, it's been a crazy, crazy week. Boy, if I could just get into some of this stuff, but we're just going to play nice, keep it clean and tight, and leave the drama by the roadside. But yeah, there's all sorts of drama all around, and it's not good, but it is what it is, man. We keep cranking out the content. Stay tuned, it's only going to get better. All right, parting shots and probable salty takes. Well, let's start off with this one. We'll call this one the miracle of Job and John. Because the great Tommy John, who the famous surgery is named after, not the underwear, passed away. I think, what was he, 83? But, always lost in this is Dr. Frank Job and him and Dr. Carlin. And I remember because my other tennis buddy, not Mr. Big, but the bad tennis buddy from my early season days, actually used to go to them. And this incredible surgery, getting to read about how it all came about, and this kind of the story of him telling Tommy, hey, I'm not sure if this is going to work. And Tommy just saying, hey, you know what? You're willing to give it a chance because what am I going to do? Go sell insurance? And for it to totally revolutionize baseball. I mean, who hasn't had one? What, Shohei's had two. And what do they say? Your longevity is probably helped by going through that procedure at least once. Like, it's definitely happening a lot more with the youngsters. I just think, wow. And it's classic that Dr. Job. It could have been named after him, but he's like, nah, I mean, yeah, I came up with this, but I'd rather have it named after Tommy. And the mutual admiration that they both had for each other and how it changed the game. Good stuff, man. In a world full of negative stories, this is classic stuff. Condolences go out to Tommy's family and all that stuff because this was a game changer as far as the national pastime is concerned. Okay, let me go back to 2026 dealing aces, and we're gonna revisit Mr. Smith preps the ground for a run at Washington, not the Commanders, not the Wizards, not the Nationals. When we talk about Mr. Smith, we're talking about that Mr. Smith. Stephen A. getting called out by the NBJ, getting the thumbs down. And of course, what does he do? He turns it on his head, goes on his show with a long rant, then goes on Hannity, and just look at this guy and just go, wow. Because for one, why would I pay attention to anything a bunch of wokesters at that? So they gave me the thumbs down. I know they've only given it to maybe 4 or 5 journalists. I'm not in the business of being on Stephen A. Smith's side. Okay, I'm kind of with, those rebels out there in the Sierra Maestre, marshaling for the March on Havana when it comes to him. But I look at, this and just go, okay. So you're giving him heat because he rightfully called out a fruitcake like Jasmine Crockett, not afraid to call out Michelle Obama or Kamala, never just really dismissing them. But we can't live in this society where it's just you say something, and next thing you know, you've got weirdos like Jamel Hill who they live and die off of it. I mean, they create showers on this kind of racial divide and these racial narratives, and he's playing right along into it. Which makes me wonder about folks who think he's got a White House run. And I think, well, why not? You got Michelle Tafoya winning the Republican nomination in Minnesota. Like, really? Nothing against Michelle, but it's just, okay, you going from the sideline to, yeah. And so, yeah, AOC's running, but maybe. We obviously know who's coming from the other side. So why not? If you're full of hubris and you're about to be eclipsed by Pat McAfee, you believe your press clippings enough? I just think it's funny that he gets like a boost. Because it's one of those things, right? If you can make yourself appeal to both sides, I mean, it's going to be hard once you start playing with that side of the aisle to keep the race hustlers and baiters and woke radicals from coming at you. That's going to be a weird one to balance. But hey, you might be able to sell that to the already jaded, moderate side of the equation. 2026, y'all keep just dealing aces. And yeah, like I said, it's just been a crazy couple of weeks here. And speaking of 2026, boy, have I got something nice to say for once. Wasn't it kind of a pleasure to see 2 Fever games this week? And we were talking more about basketball than the BS that goes on off the court. Talking about Caitlin's plus and minus. Talking about the Angel Reese disaster class and how she probably bounced back with the win over Vegas last night. Crazy. It's like, wow, we have a week where the nonsense off the court, and there was some nonsense off the court because there can't be a week with the loonies on the court without it. But that was in the background for once. I mean, good grief. the smile on Rachel Demita's face when she's like, "Hey guys, I can actually come here with a laugh and smile and talk about things on the court." We're talking about who's going to be the MVP, right? Is it going to be Caitlin, Kelsey Mitchell, Olivia Miles, or Aja Wilson? And that's great. Of course, that's kind of interesting that now we're stepping into football universe. That the narrative goes back to basketball because we actually have something to talk about and not so much fixate on all this weird drama that's been going on away from the court. And like I said, there were some instances, obviously people having to wear, that Riley Gaines' buddy with the XX and the chromosomes t-shirt. Some stuff going on there. I think another fan got spit on. Another fan was asked to leave under false pretenses. So there's a lot of shenanigans, but we'll just say the purveyors of information, the folks that the Stephanie Whites of the world cannot stand, and the players who claim they're bringing, not to mention ESPN, bringing all of this bad energy to the league, they are happy. Caitlin's cooking, and it's happy. They're all happy about it. I think it is interesting, though, something that I saw today when I was watching Fearless right before I went to the air. I forget who it was, but they made a fascinating point, and this is that we are in a world now, and I was talking earlier, right, about how the ring and its importance. But it's clear when it comes to Caitlin Clark. I think it was the Korean co-cell Steve Kim who said this. Caitlin may be the most polarizing athlete anywhere right now. And I thought long and hard, and I said, I can't argue with that. The fact that her cult is only interested in her doing well. They don't care if the Fever wins a championship. They don't care that Asia Wilson has won 3 out of the last 4. It's all they want to do is see Caitlin cook. And I know it's weird that way in global football too, when it comes to some of the fanboys. That I just want to watch them all. Everybody else can be damned. Or same thing with Mbappe. Or there's some people that way with Ousmane Dembele. And I sit there and go, huh? Carlos Vela used to be the same way with LAFC. In fact, we lost a lot of fans when Carlos Vela walked away because all they wanted to do was watch Carlos Vela. And that's still hard for my pea brain to wrap around, where you're more fixated on a player than the team, the ultimate goal, which is winning championships. If that happens, that's just, that's icing on the cake. Great. I get to buy more gear and flex with a star on my chest. But Caitlin Clark, it is a cult. And I think with some of these other ladies as well. And it's more about watching them do their thing. It's, right, what happens when the Fever don't win? It's not so much about how they lost, but it's how Caitlin's being used or being misused by Stephanie White and company. Like I said, to me, it's crazy. But, the action was great on the court. The bonfire stayed lit. But I think this week we were less angry about it. Things like maybe Alec and I and others getting in the foxhole or their content chambers and just lampooning it. Of course, as soon as I say this, I'm sure there'll be more shenanigans when I go start editing this and reviewing content just for kicks and giggles while I'm doing it. Okay. The first poll is released. Yeah, let's get back to the college gridiron. Hey, kind of funny. We're not talking a lot of drama there, which I don't know if that's good or bad. We definitely hashed a lot of that out with Alec when we spoke last week. But I think it is interesting on certain levels. Obviously Ohio State won, Oregon 2. 20 of the last 25 preseason ones didn't win a natty or get to the championship game, something crazy like that. But I think about the Big Ten. Obviously, 1 and 2, then you have Indiana down at 6. And I'm not really interesting because, Coach Signetti, he's flexing. He says, I've got the receipts and I'm here. I'm here. But for me, this is, when it comes to the success that Indiana had in 2025, is this an outlier? Or maybe we're going to see more programs. Obviously, there's endless bags of cash out there to replicate what Indiana did, especially if you get the right coach and you bring the right people over with a system, a concept. So it, for me, is a very intriguing question heading into the show. Right now, my gut feeling says Indiana is an outlier in that just through attrition, when it comes to who can get the big bags of cash, utilize them as far as putting together a team that can, whatever this is going to end up being, right? It's 12 now, but we're hearing 16, 20, 24. It's just not now in 2026. I'm looking at the next 4 or 5 years. And do I see somebody else emerging out of basically nowhere? Because come on. If you could have placed a feature in 2020 that Indiana would win the national championship in 2026, you'd probably be able to buy your own country right now. I think it's more of a possibility. It's like I said, in terms of especially with no guardrails still in place, what you can put together on the fly and within 1 or 2 years be successful. But I still think that Coach Signetti's grow on trees. It's got to take somebody special to be able to export that system, talent, and be able to attract folks. I mean, obviously it hasn't really worked that well, and Boulder has it. So, yeah, I'm going to say it's an outlier until proven otherwise. It's definitely possible what Coach Sig and company have done at other schools, but we need to see more of it, right? I just think that conference right now it's a powerhouse. And there's a lot of money that you can pour into these programs, with the TV, the weirdo cultists that have far too much money to burn on. So yes, Indiana and its proximity to that conference, that makes more sense to me than, let's say, JMU, or any of these teams, let's say, in the newly constituted Pac-12, which, we should have some really interesting news about that here soon, hopefully. Anyway, a lot coming up, I would say, in the next 2 months as far as the Foxhole is concerned. So stay tuned. We're going to try to put out a lot of content with football season. Got the scene, the stuff we want to do there too. So if you want to be there, you got an idea for it, drop us a line, ftinfx@gmail.com. Call the hotline, 541-525-0896. Leave a message. Yeah, we're about to cook up here. Like we said, we're kind of dealing with some turbulence as far as some of the things that have been occurring. But, we can't do anything about that at this point. All we can do is soldier on and provide more high-fidelity content experiences for you all. As always, keep it clean, keep it tight, keep it real. Avoid the bracelets, because we ain't got time for that bull jive. Enjoy good food and good drink with the people that matter as much as you can. There's only so much summer left. All right, keep it clean, keep it tight, always keep it real. We will see you soon enough in the Foxhole. Peace, y'all.